show, but I'll never give up. No, I'm gonna go far. I'll do it for the ones that never made it at all. I've been really high, gotta be low. Almost made it to the top, but I came up short. But I'll never give up. No, I'm gonna go far. I'll do it for the ones that never made it at all.
Welcome one, welcome all. We're here with part 4. Son of a bitch. Oh man, part 4 of Suck Up the Purple Buttermilk. Yeah? We will pick this up in a second. Son of a bitch. I'll be back, boys.
Oh, no, Butler. Hi, nice to meet you. Hi. You want a pretzel?
Shakes for
Were you
guys and
laughing
hugs for
at
girls.
our Oculus?
Yeah, you guys look like you're having fun. We're having ball.
George played too.
Yeah?
Yeah, we
You
played
guys all on the one thing?
all
Like
the
one
same
game?
game. Yeah, and it's like,
Figure it out.
it's scary because you do stationary, but you're moving. I moved a lot more than I realized.
Yeah, you can teleport around, of course. But you're moving. Like when you move, you're moving. Like when you move in real life, you're moving in the game. So
Yeah.
she starts off over there, I'm over here, next to you, like bumping into each other.
I know. When I came and you guys were like this close to each other, I was like, oh
Talk
no.
about miniature golf.
That's
And
awesome.
I play golf plus all the time with like a couple friends over there. So I'm pretty good putting now. That's quite a good.
That's awesome.
It's pretty cool.
I've never played it. I might have to give it a shot one day.
On the VR and real good.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, my friend has one that's like just fishing.
Climbing, it's called a climb, and you find handholds and a cliff, and you have to pull yourself up on each one. Like, you know what I mean? You have to have good hand and footholds before you make the next reach, or else you fall.
Yeah, a lot of the games that have been out are now getting like their VR editions, like Minecraft VR.
Can you really?
Yeah.
Oh, you can.
Oh,
But
I
is
thought
it
You can play Among Us
Oculus?
VR.
Oh, you know what you'd like? Virtual desktop. You can have your work computer, like 3 screens all around you without actually having to play. Like that will hook up to your PC and give you multiple PC screens, multiple monitors.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, virtual desktop. So I can have like, you know, if I'm doing work or whatever, I can do it through my work laptop. Like email over here, PowerPoint here, so on.
Yeah, I got 2 monitors on my computer. Do like streaming and stuff. Yeah, I'm actually streaming right now.
Are you really?
Doing a book reading live. It's one of my friends. He's an addict in recovery, and so he wrote a book about it. So I'm reading it. Good stuff, though.
Top to listen to.
Which friend?
He goes to the Y. He's like 73 years old, but he's like all his life lived in different places. I think you might have met him. He's the guy who's at his class kind of bald. He's like, oh, of course you have such a great mother who raised you, like talking to you like,
I remember him. That's the guy?
yeah, Donnie.
Oh,
And he's like 73.
yeah.
Yeah, that's just cool. Good book. What, crypto? Yeah. Crypto.
Amazing.
Yeah. It blew up a couple days ago. In the 20 grand one day. Crazy.
I sold the theory of the
Oh no! Damn. I know.
I got bad luck with my other stuff.
Yeah, Warren Buffett is one of my favorite lines by him. It's like not about timing the market, it's about timing the market. So, like, it doesn't matter how. Yeah, it doesn't matter. Like, you're never gonna perfectly time it perfectly, but if you just put your money in, and the longer you hold it in there, of course, it's gonna generally go up if you get like safer stuff. Like,
Don't panic and sell short.
exactly.
Except there's some places.
Yeah.
I've had some things where I could have made epic money, and I thought my dad was something that was Pacific Coast stuff. Like Pacific Coast Gas and Electric. Pacific Gas and Electric. We would have had that fire. So I'm like, they're too big to fail. They went from 40 to like 8 to 5 to 4. And like, I'm gonna buy a lot of this stuff. You know what I mean? Because the infrastructure that they have is worth $40 billion, and their market capitalization started at $60 billion, when it was 40, but when it was at 5, now it's at 7, right? So like, so
That's when you
they're
want to
worth
buy.
6 times what it was covered. My dad says, no, those things go to zero all the time. After 30, it went.
Yeah.
So it's 7 times
Yeah.
money.
Those projects are the. I mean, yeah, some of them go to zero, but like that's what those projects you want to buy. When something's down like 80-90% of its all-time high, that's the time to buy it.
Right.
But it's like, it's all a risk. It's all like, you never know. Like, but yeah, that's where you get diverse stuff. You know, put your money in like 40, 50 different things. One of them's bound to go.
He likes to hike.
Yeah, I think it's the best. New Hampshire, we're going 4th of July for the Adirondacks in New York. I've only been once. I am too. We're going to go up to for the 4th. Yeah, Acadian on the 4th. So, we're taking the whole week off. I'll be in Acadia. Watching the fireworks. So, we're going up to upstate New York. Hopefully hit the Steiger Lake, do some kayaking there. Darting over to Vermont, Lake Champlain, and then darting over to Acadia, and then going right up to Cotton, and then like zip, and I've done it.
He's done it. How many times?
I think just once. I've done no, just once. Katahdin is a tough hike. It's pretty long too. It takes. Yeah.
He
Yeah,
did it in 12.
I did it.
You did
12.
He did it in
I was
12.
running. Yeah.
It's like, Mom, you couldn't keep up.
Did you have to get the campsite the night before to start early?
Honestly, I got lucky. Like, I drove there not knowing about the whole camp thing and like whatever, and I get there and it's like, oh, you plan on hiking this mountain today? And I'm like, yeah. And they're like, no, you're not. And I was like, what do you mean? I just drove I literally came right from Vermont. I hiked the highest mountain in Vermont, drove up to Maine trying to, kill 2 birds with 1 stone. And I have work the next day. And I was like, I literally just drove like 6 hours just to hike this mountain. Like, you're telling me I can't hike it? And they're like, yup. I was like, what? And so I was like, okay, I'll just walk a couple trails nearby, like swim in the lake, like I'll make the most of it. And I was talking to some ranger. I'm like, is there literally like no way I can hike this mountain? And it's like, you are coming here pretty late. I got there like 12 p.m.
Yeah.
And he was like, but if you look like you're in shape. Like if you get a campsite, they'll let you through. And I was like, are there any campsites left? And there was like a couple left. I was like, okay, I got to buy it the day of, but sometimes they're packed and sometimes they're booked. So they weren't booked that day. It was like $30, $20. And I got the campsite, and it was like 12:30. I didn't even like put all the things I wanted to in my bag. I put nothing but water, a couple snacks, and I started to run. And I just was like, I carried it. I took everything out of my bag because I was like, okay, I need to be as light and as quick as possible. But I had nothing but water, bear spray, and a couple like nuts and seeds. And I started running, and people were coming down the mountain looking at me like I was crazy. Like, you're going, it's too late. He's like, turn back, you're not gonna make it up there. I'm like, you don't know who I am. Like, I'm going. And the second I get to the top, it took me 6 hours to get to the top. So 12:30 to 6 p.m. The second I get to the top, the sun hits the horizon. And so,
You have a headlamp?
Yeah, I had a headlamp, and I actually.
You can't come down without You're done.
Yeah. And
with a headlamp coming down that.
I know.
I would
And
die.
it actually took me I think exactly 6 hours to get down, but I ran into 2 people who had so much trail mix. They're like, oh yeah, have some trail mix, and I was like, thank you so much. And I got down to the bottom with them, and they're like, oh, let's have a beer with us. We hiked the mountain together because we hiked down together. I was so fortunate to find people to hike down with, because by yourself for 6 hours in the middle of Maine is like kind of scary. But yeah, it was such a great experience. Perfect weather. Got to see so much. Like I literally lucked out just being able to get to that campsite and make it up. But yeah, I definitely would buy a campsite in advance. Just while you
we
go
didn't do
there.
that. We had the campsite the night of the hike.
Yeah.
So we got caught up, like coming into the radio station at
Mm-hmm.
7.
It's a popular place.
And then they let us through. We're the first
Baxter
car
State
through,
Forest.
because we stayed at a hostel in Millinocket nearby, right? And we're the first ones through. A juvenile moose came out in front of our van and started running, all goofy, because they have like the backward jointed legs, you know what I mean? And like he was bow-legged too, so it was like you're looking at him like he just looked goofy. Running. I have a whole video on it. For 5 minutes, he ran in front. Because he got stuck like over here, and he wanted to go to this watering hole over here, and the road was right up the middle, right? So he came out onto the road, then he saw the van, he looked back at us, and he was like, oh crap, you know what I mean? And he started running. So we hung way back, right? You know, it spooked him. So we got to watch him for like 5 minutes.
That's so
And finally, we took off down this other trail. And the guy who, our guide guy, his name was Trash Man.
Yeah, I love the trail names. So the trail names, like people who hike the Appalachian Trail, or like the Pacific Trail, or the Mid-Continental Trail, they just get like cool little trail names because they don't like tell strangers like who they are or whatever. And like I hiked most beautiful parts of the AT, and I'd always find people who had trail names. And like some very unique names, I can't even remember most of them, but they were pretty cool. But my trail name, because I was like, I'm a high pointer, and like usually a trail name is only good a trail name if you do backpacking and hiking. So I was like, oh, you're a high pointer, you hike honey, you should deserve a trail name. So my trail name was Rainbow Unicorn. Just because it has to be weird. It has to be weird. Yeah. Yeah. And everyone loved it. They were like, oh, what's your trail name? I was walking down the AT, and then you bump into them throughout the AT, and they call you by that trail name. So yeah, that was cool. But yeah, Baxter State Forest, I love. It's such a gorgeous area. You want to do kayaking because there's a lake right there at the base of that mountain. It's gonna be nice.
Are you playing video this weekend?
Not this next weekend.
So you know who Jack Allen is? Like the guy who was like the lawyer of that, like was like in the 40s, 50s, right before I was. Kerouac was like this guy, just a kind of free spirit before the hippies came out, kind of thing. Where he wrote a book about going across the country on like hiking, hunting, and tree tracks.
Yeah.
Jack Allen. So he's kind of hippie. So I went with a friend of mine who's a great girl. He and I were lowly enlisted guys. So I got out after the stayed for 35 years.
Wow.
And so I came up with this joke from Carol. Like, it's two different things. Like, Green criminals are very intense people, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Usually stressful people, but we enlisted people, you know what I mean? So, Kevin, like, Kerouac is the opposite of what he would do. Like, him, as a real person, he's totally like that. Fear, he's not like a so I just
That's hilarious.
because part of it was he was just after 35 years living a life like that. You know what I mean? He just doesn't care what anybody thinks. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
big beard. When he started, so he did the whole 18.
Oh wow.
But I started with him just to do Katahdin, like back in June. June? Yeah, June this year.
Was it while he was doing the
Or
AT?
June of last year.
Did you meet him up there while he was doing the AT?
He
Or-
stayed in my camper with his son Ethan, and then we all drove up there and stayed in Philadelphia for 2 nights, and then that third day, so I went up to Philadelphia. Like, I think he made friends because it was important. So he made friends with this other movie guy who ran a bar up there. Famous bar up there. He was there one night while I was sleeping. Dickie's like a triathlete and extreme.
Yeah,
like,
I could never do the
like
triathlon,
he,
the
well,
triathlon.
yeah, and he was
You're crazy.
always like tough. And his son was like a fire jumper.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Yeah. So two of them out last week I thought. But yeah, you know, we stayed a couple nights. He made friends with that guy. He now has invited us back. So I can stay not in a hostel, but this guy who ran the bar has his own hotel. And we stayed free. We're gonna do it again. He said.
Yeah.
But I just did Katahdin. He was continuing to do the horizontal work again with Ethan for 500 miles. And Ethan was stepping on the Harper's Ferry. Just before Christmas.
That's crazy.
Like, so that's 6 months, right?
Yeah, you gotta
6.5
start in
months.
Katahdin because it's
Yeah.
just gonna get colder the further you go on.
And so we went up. His life straw failed, so we were using mine. And I had electrolytes in my first quart of water, liter, whatever it was. But I had electrolytes in my first liter. Did not add them to my second liter. I missed that part of discussion until like at the hospital. Class. So I ran out of electrolytes and cramped up. Like, 300 feet. I had another 1,000 feet to go.
It's the worst.
And
I
I told
actually.
him, go on, you know, I'll give you this one cramp, but I drank water. This time I added electrolytes and I had a solid snack. I waited half an hour. I started going again and I got that signal. My legs about to seize.
Yeah.
And I figured if it goes like it has something to do with it, right? In the middle of the night, you ever have a Charlie horse? It's so
Yeah.
bad. Like you can't walk.
Imagine
the next day.
trying to hike on that.
So yeah, I would have been airlifted for what, $3,000 or
Oh
something
my
like that,
God.
or whatever. They would have
Yeah.
come up. I think they charge you the same if they could come up to town. Someone else got pulled out while we're up there. They get nervous. Like, what the hell happened?
Jesus.
You couldn't tell. Like, did someone else get lost and you know not get
Do you know the Presidential Traverse Trail in New Hampshire? It's like the.
Presidential Mountains?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Heard of it.
So it's part of the AT. It's like it's noted as the most beautiful part of the Appalachian Trail, and it's 14 peaks. And I did that whole trail. The 14 peaks is like 26 miles. I did it 3 times in 1 week, and then yeah, I did it twice in like 2 days. Like once on a Monday, and I hiked it, and then I hiked all the way back. And at the end of it, like I ran out of my electrolytes. I ran out of like my water pack broke, and so I couldn't even fill it up at like the places you can fill up your water on the AT. And so like the last thank God I like camped out, and there's some people who gave me a little bit of their water. But like the last hike down, like I had no water for about like 8 hours, and like I got like the most severe trigger finger. Like my finger just locked up, and I couldn't. If it was in my legs, it would have been over. Like I couldn't even move out of there. Like it hurts. I couldn't even like straighten my finger out. It was so painful. That's definitely gotta be careful like all liquid stuff. I use liquid IV. One of my favorite. Yeah, it's liquid IV. I actually have some
in my room.
Do you have your tiger balm, JD?
I do.
Can you just let him just
Yeah,
try to
liquid IV.
Oh, I love Tiger Balm. I swear by it.
It's actually in
Tiger
my,
balm is really good for sore
it's in my car.
Your tiger balm?
Yeah, that's alright. I'm gonna buy some actually.
Yeah, remember I told you about
So
it? Like,
good.
it's really good.
Yeah, you told me about it. It was in my notes. So like,
Yeah, this stuff right here for the electrolytes is my favorite. It's a little expensive, but it works.
It's strong. It's good.
Has all your electrolytes, has all your
so you just add it to
water. Yeah,
Other they taste
they taste good. But you don't, you drink it for the
They
flavor.
taste good?
No,
Yeah.
I'm.
But there's different flavors
Where do
too.
you,
There's
where do
different
you get
flavors too. So you can get them at
You
Walmart.
get
Walmart? Like where? In the health section? Or like.
No, it's like it's in like if you go to Western Walmart, it's by all the food. A couple aisles down before you get to the clean products.
You have to drink it.
Like the Gatorade section maybe.
Oh,
Yeah.
But yeah, Tiger Balm is a lifesaver. I would have not been able to hike the President Career Trail 3 times in a week without Tiger Balm. If my feet start getting sore, put it on my feet. Like your back gets sore, put it on your back. Like any kind of muscle spasm, cramps, it actually did help the hurt for a little bit. But yeah, exactly. It literally is that amazing. Like it's, if you have a headache, you put it on your temples. Headache kind of goes away. If you have a stuffy nose,
It does taste
Amazing.
you smell it, or you put it right on the top of your nose, your stuffy nose clears up. It's literally the best thing in the universe. Like, I would swear by it. Like, if there was one thing in this world I could think of that I can't live without, it would be Tiger Balm. Like, if it
It's
was
so
like,
good.
would you rather have like $1 million right now or Tiger Balm? I would be like Tiger Balm all the way. Like, that's how good it is. Like, it is so good. And
take the $1 million and buy it.
Buy Tiger Balm. Buy way not to the Tiger Balm.
Yeah, right. But yeah, Tiger Balm's like $10 at CVS, Walgreens. Get the red one. It's more concentrated. The white one, there's the same price. White one, I would recommend like women get it for more sensitive skin. It's less concentrated. At the Indian, I don't know if you know where the Indian food market is. It's in Westboro, Mass. They sell it for $5 there. At like an Indian market. There's Tiger Balm. At the Indian market, you know where the Christmas tree shop used to be?
Yeah. It's an
Next
Indian
door,
market
there's
there.
an Indian market right next door.
Yeah. Like right underneath where the Christmas tree shop.
Is it good?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's better than like white one. Cheaper too.
We're looking for it.
That's literally where we went during COVID to get toilet paper.
Oh, there?
Yeah.
You did?
No, you were the one who brought it in the beginning. You're looking
Oh,
for
I
places that had
did.
toilet
We
paper.
were looking everywhere.
And they had toilet paper.
Yes.
Grab
We were. We were like.
I did, and a memo came out. Stop grabbing toilet paper. Grab toilet paper will be subject to disciplinary action. I'm like, I don't care.
I was so nervous. Like,
I'm like, hey, disciplinary action.
stole
Whatever.
toilet paper.
That's so crazy.
Remember all the locks that appeared on every
Oh,
toilet paper everywhere?
People on Amazon.
Everywhere.
Even the store.
Everywhere you cared to venture, because it was so hard to venture anywhere.
People on Amazon are selling it for like one toilet roll for like $1,000.
So
It's
stupid.
like crazy.
That
So
Crazy.
Yeah, price gouging was for real.
Twinkies, right? Twinkies went up to the
Oh, yeah.
package for a while, but they opened up the production line.
Alright, very nice meeting you, Mike. I gotta read a book.
Nice to meet you.
My live stream's like, what the hell happened? I missed Revive. Aw. Sorry, man. Sorry I haven't been here. Nice seeing you, man. Nice seeing you.
Read a book.
Alright, folks, it's time to read a book. I'm gonna actually restart my Instagram live just so. Yeah.
I heard that whole conversation probably.
Yeah. Sorry about that, guys. I'll be back in a second. Yeah. All right, folks, we're live. So we're actually alive. We're reading Suck Up the Purple Buttermilk by Donald Otis Steiger. Chapter 8. We got through some nitty gritty. Wasn't for the faint of heart. I think that's how the saying goes. But we're jumping right into it. Chapter 8. The walls come tumbling down. It was only a matter of distance. It was only a matter of time. Until I've learned my lesson, these walls, I'll stay behind. Around this time, my friend Jesse came back into town. He looked good and told me he scored big in Boston. We walked around my backyard smoking joints and taking it easy. Jesse knew the drugs had him. We used to laugh at the insanity. That's what they mean by the bonds created through addiction.
Do you guys want dessert?
We were literally blood brothers in this sick heroin war together. Nobody wants to do a drug every day of their life just to function. Whether heroin or alcohol, I was developing another bad habit. Every time things got crazy, I would check into a detox for 21 days to chill out. And now, also struggling with her own heroin habit, would do the same. Norton's was an amazingly hard place to get fired from, so I barely kept my job intact. I was still stealing all kinds of stuff from there, filling my fence's house with all sorts of material. I kept thinking to myself that the family life was helping me to hang on. I truly loved Amy and Jesse. Being a father was a really good feeling and had a lot of responsibility. Jesse and I would do stretching exercises and sit-ups, then jog around the block slowly. He was a natural for running. We enjoyed laughing and joking together. To be a father with a son was a proud and exciting experience. I loved spending time with Amy too. I read to her stories like Cat in the Hat, books, and played cards with her. Amy loved the games War and Old Maid. We laughed and shared special moments that I will always treasure. I remember dropping off Amy for her recital practice and then driving to Worcester to cop heroin. I always planned on making it back in time to pick her up. She was only 5, and oftentimes I would be anywhere from 1/2 to 1 hour late. She'd be sitting there by herself crying. I'll never forget the horrible feeling of being dope sick and seeing my own flesh and blood, my loving, helpless Amy's eyes, seeing me. I felt so full of shame and humiliation that my heart was torn from my chest. It was frustrating, trying to be a good father while being pulled apart by my drug abuse. I was screaming inside and hated myself for being this way. But I tried covering it up with drugs. I wanted to be a father to my kids in the best possible way, but my soul belonged to the drugs. And the more I did, the further I got. I felt shame and remorse, and pain in my heart for my children because I was being pulled out of my home in order to cop. Once again, it got to the point of just using to feel normal. Whenever I didn't have it, I was awfully sick, kind of like having the flu. And you know you're going to get worse if you don't get something quick. I kept saying to myself, one last time. This is the last time. One more time. This is the last one. Doing this to my children was like watching someone you love drowning at your fingertips, helpless. I often took Jesse's paper route money so I could use it to cop. He also had a sixth sense when I was sick and would give me his tip money from the paper route. I can honestly say that never in my lifetime could I make something like this right. I had been blessed with two of the most perfect children in the world, and I was blowing it real bad. One night, while sitting in the kitchen having a beer, my daughter Amy on my lap, some guys in suits came in and announced that they were looking for Mr. Donnie Steiger. After telling them that I was Mr. Donnie Steiger, they identified themselves as FBI and placed me under arrest for grand larceny. Damn. Then they searched me in front of Amy, which I found humiliating. I asked if they would let me bring my daughter home first, and they agreed. I was really dope sick and needed to get some heroin in me. After 8 hours of interrogation, I told the FBI that if they gave me money to cop, I would tell them everything they wanted to know. Jesus Christ. Agreeing, they gave me the money and sent me home. The next day after I got high, I was so moronic that I walked into work as if nothing had happened. They called my name over the loudspeaker, ordered me to clean out my locker, fired me, and said to me that if they ever saw me around there again, I would be going to jail for a long time. I drove off and traded my car into the dope man for 3 bags. I knew I was going down and I was going to get high. My new hobby became shoplifting. Damn, this is getting sad. I would go into Zayre's or Spags and fill my coat with anything I could carry. It was 1983. I was 33 years old and down and out in Worcester, Massachusetts. I got arrested for shoplifting and now had a definite jail sentence awaiting me. I shot so many drugs that the veins in my arms gave out, forcing me to use my feet and legs to shoot dope. That's tough. I called Spectrum House because I knew I had to get help and fast. At first they kept telling me that no beds were available, but finally they told me to come in. This was my 5th detox. My father, whom I visited once and a while in Spencer, brought me in. He took pictures of all the drug paraphernalia in my house. He told the admitting nurse to do whatever it takes, including tying me to the bed. They informed him I had a constitutional right to leave if I chose to. He then started to panic, but I reassured him that I would stay. I started experiencing the worst withdrawal symptoms. I could remember it was 93 degrees in there, and I thought I was going to pass out. I told the nurse to either help me kick this addiction or shoot me after my father left. I had to once again go through the long process of being admitted with all the paperwork, blood tests, and delicing shower. The nurse asked me certain family information, such as how old were my children. I told her my son was 7.5 and my daughter was 5, and they were the best kids in the world, but obviously the heroin was winning out over the love of my children. The doctor who came to give me my physical knew me by my first name. "You made it back, Donnie," he said stoically. I told him that this time it was going to be different, like he had never heard that line before. He examined my arm and asked me how big my habit had gotten. I said around $100 to $200 a day, which included barbiturates or barbiturates and intravenous drugs. You have to get real honest with the doc because the withdrawal can kill you if you lie to him. I smoked a butt, then ran to the bathroom and threw up for a long time. I felt like there were bugs crawling all over me. You might say I had the heebie-jeebies. Whoops and jingles. I haven't heard that for a long time. The heebie-jeebies, whoops and jingles. It was 12:30 p.m. and I had been there for 3 hours. Spectrum House Detox use methadone to wean you off the dope. It is a strong drug that replaces the addiction to heroin. They would then wean you off the methadone so that you could supposedly get on with your life. I knew of very few addicts who got clean and stayed clean using this method. I didn't see anyone around me making it, so I had little hope for myself. 3.5 hours and still no methadone. I was losing it. One of the most degrading things was seeing the second shift nurses and counselors again. They gave you that look which said, "Oh, Donnie, not again." I finally got my methadone at 3:30 p.m., 6 hours after I had arrived. I received 30 milligrams crushed up in a pleasus. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right. In applesauce. Pleasus, what the fuck? I was still, crushed up in applesauce. The first dose did nothing for me. I was still puking and shaking. The nurses saw I was still out of it and called the doctor at home. He okayed another dose, and this one stopped the sickness for a while. At least, I finally laid down to rest and was awakened every hour, on the hour, for my blood pressure and pulse. The nurses wanted to make sure I made it through the first 2 nights. The next morning I managed a little toast with jelly and some juice. I was made the checker on the second day, checking all the patients at night. I couldn't sleep because the voices in the rubber room downstairs were loud as hell. One of the counselors said only about 3 out of 25 would stay sober a year. He said that in all likelihood it would not be any of us. I took this as a challenge, a personal goal. I highly suggest it to any counselor reading this that tell a bunch of addicts they can't do something is the best way to make them do it. There was one opening for long-term care and I took it. Although this was detox number 5, it was the first long-term one for me. I packed my bags and waited to leave for the other facility. Meanwhile, Anne came by with our son Jesse and daughter Amy. It was quite an emotional scene. I was crying, Anne was crying, and our kids were crying. I told my kids that Daddy was sick and needed to go on a little trip and would be back in no time. Anne said she loved me and not to worry about a thing. It's funny because I was more afraid than I had ever been in my entire life because the scariest part was doing something about my addiction. I'll never understand how the addict's mind works. One day, I was called into the office to see my doctor, counselor, and nurse. They asked me what I wanted to do, and I asked them for some suggestions. Let's see long-term care, 18 months at Spectrum. This was a huge block of time, but despite my doubts, I had already agreed to do the time. And my friend Jesse said they would take care of the house and the kids. Anyway, this would certainly help my jail time. The short-term treatment program never worked because I never worked it. Excuse me, let me reread that. The short-term treatment program never worked because I never worked it. I just did not get it, period. My head would start to clear up. But when the feelings would start to plague me, my self-esteem went down the toilet. After the drugs were out of my system, I would always become vulnerable and scared. The drugs masked everything, but slowly the drugs didn't work. I knew the answer might be long term, but in the back of every addict's mind is that there must be a way to go than a life without any drugs in it. There must be a way to go than a life without any drugs in it. I'm doing good, Maddie Walsh. Thanks. Thanks for asking. Page 66. On day 11 of detox, I was taken off methadone and shipped to Spectrum, long-term care. I was sick and depressed. Driving up there, I felt like I was being brought to an exorcism. The death of Don the addict had begun. And there's some pictures here of 30-ish year old Donnie looking like a stud. Myself strung out, flabby and overweight, still looking like a stud. And then another picture with him and his son Jesse. Myself and Amy. There's a picture of him at her dance recital. I'll show you these pictures right here, but if you guys want to see the rest of the pictures in this book, you're gonna have to buy the book. Alright, links in the description on my YouTube at The One Who Cares. Alright, page 68, how to mess up your life. Picture, that's a picture of the drugs. There's another picture of the drugs he was taking in the syringes that were left in his room. Going in. I sat in the words are so hard. Admittance room and noticed these strange souls shuffling along the floor with signs around their necks. One guy had a gigantic cigarette dangling from his neck. A rope, coming out of the ash, ran up his chest and behind his neck. It turns out that the man was caught smoking in the bathroom, something no one was supposed to do. This meant he had to wear that gigantic cigarette or whatever he went for a week. Later on, I would know how he felt, for it was to be my turn at wearing that hideous contraption. Another time, I saw a man entering a room next to mine and announcing, "Excuse me, my name is Jim, and I can't be trusted." Everyone in the room responded, "Okay." This poor soul got caught stealing sugar packets from the coffee room. Wherever someone broke the rules, they would undergo what was called the haircut. This was when a patient was brought up before the counselors and then allowed to be torn apart by their fellow patients. Sounds brutal. Again, I would learn more about this later during my stay. All this information was given to me by one of the counselors, a big and tall black man having the name Heydrich. Though he was huge and tough looking, he had this calm, serene disposition that made me sick. He filled me in on the rules for those patients who didn't go by the rules. For people on learning experience, there was no talking, joking, or laughing between them except at designated times. Neither was there to be no drug talk among the patients. If you kept breaking the rules after a learning experience, you were gone the next time they cleaned house. Those addicts who couldn't follow the rules consistently were sent back to the streets. Since I learned all this the first day, I can't believe I stayed. For the first 30 days, I had someone with me 24 hours a day. This was supposedly to cut down on suicides. This silent suicide guard even followed me to the bathroom. The withdrawal process was unbelievable. Heroin replaces your body's natural ability to create endorphins, and when the heroin was gone, I simply didn't have any. My eyelids even hurt when I blinked. My nerves were also shot. I remember my hand coming up and slapping my face uncontrollably, or sleeping and having up and slapping my face uncontrollably, or sleeping and having my arm, then my leg suddenly jump too without any warning. The first 3 months went by, a minute at a time. and I was crying every day. There was a paradox going on in my head. I hated it there, but then again, I felt like I was in a safe place for the first time in my life. I started pulling myself away for the people who were always getting me into trouble. If I was going to go through all of this, I was going to stay sober. Every morning at breakfast, I would sit by myself and eat, still shaking and quivering. I would start crying uncontrollably, the dammed up emotions of years coming back. I was crying because the babysitters hurt me and my brother and sister. I was crying because I watched my dog Rocket get shot. I was crying because I mailed my cross back to Aunt Pat. Damn. I was crying because heroin sucks and ruins your insides. My emotions were flying so high that I would get these rebellious jags. 3 times a week, I would see Heydrich and be always mad as hell, ranting and raving about something. He would always just sit there, hands folded in his little pot belly. So, Mr. Steiger, what is the problem today? I would reply in the kindest way possible. Blank you. I kind of just want to say it. Fuck you. Fuck this place, and fuck you too. Sometimes I would spit on the floor, storming out of his office like a madman, on a mission, smiling. Heydrich would say, "So, Mr. Steiger, you're choosing not to face yourself today? That's all right. Go wash dishes in the pan, and we'll try again another day." In the pan, Steiger. 2 weeks in the pan. This meant a learning experience. For me, I was scrubbing pans all day, every day. When I wasn't scrubbing pans, I was scrubbing floors with a wire brush. This weirdo woman named Linda always wandered around the floor unit screaming at me, "You're a loser! A loser!" I would sit there crying and praying from the bottom of my soul to have the power not to hit her. One time I got angry with Heydrich about something and threw a piece of cantaloupe at him in the recreation room, missing his head by inches as it bounced off the coffee pot. Now it was time for my haircut. I went to Heydrich's office and knocked on his door. It went something like this. "Who is that?" "Donald Steiger, sir." "Who?" "Donald Steiger, sir." "Get in here, Steiger." I entered the room, and there was Heydrich sitting in the corner of his office. 2 appointed patients were always chosen to give the haircuts. You were required to stand at attention, while those appointed sat side by side in front of you. They then would begin screaming at you one by one, sometimes together. If you acted out of order, you were gone. "I suppose you want to go back to jail, Mr. Steiger. I suppose you want to go back on the street and die a miserable junkie. What about your kids, you selfish loser? Don't you care about your family, you stupid idiot?" Then Heydrich would conclude with a little encouragement. "Don, you are worth saving. But you have to get up and start living life the way it's supposed to be lived. Get out of here and start shaping up your sorry self." And there's another picture with him and his kids at Spectrum House for a visiting day. Damn. Keeping on. Oh God, what does punishment have to do with sincerity? Asked Jackie Robinson. I was only allowed to say thank you. Some patients started defending themselves or copying an attitude. If you did this, you were thrown out and had to come back and do it all over again. One day I got caught smoking and it was sentenced to the giant cigarette. I had to see Heydrich with this ridiculous thing around my neck. "So, Steiger, you thought you were different, that you could smoke anywhere. You've been here 3 months and come in and tell me to get lost while you go out and sneak cigarettes? What do you suggest we do?" I had no answer. I wore that cigarette for 3 weeks. I was also afraid that they were going to kick me out of there. The only time you could take the cigarette off was upstairs in the sleeping room. At the end of the 3rd week, I took the stupid cigarette off my neck and smashed it against the wall. One night, I smashed it against the wall. Of course, the thing didn't break, but the news spread quickly that I had freaked out again. The next day, I traded in the cigarette for a sign, a giant paper poster which read, "Instead of dealing with my feelings in inappropriate ways, I choose to act like a baby and dump them all over the floor." Damn, this recovery is crazy. I wore the sign 24 hours a day for weeks. Testing the limits. When will you break? Persecuted and being humiliated. See what he does. Carrying the weight of cutting words that fall into my soul. The pain I cannot bear. In my opinion, the only reason they didn't expel me is because I would go into Heydrich's office and beg him to help me. I told him I couldn't control my emotions and it scared me. I was slowly opening up to this wise black man who listened patiently to my pathetic outbursts. After the cigarette throwing incident, there was a break in the sickness. I started to realize there just might be a way out of this hell. It took 6 months to come to that conclusion. A Hispanic by the name of Raul came into the rehab around this time. He also cried and wandered the floor alone. I gave him a big hug and told him that I cared about him. It was the first time I would learn that helping others is the most important part of staying sober. I showed him the ropes and told him everything would be alright if he just hung in there. I'm not sure I believed what I told him myself, but I still did anyway. Recently, I got a call from Raul telling me that he had been sober for over 13 years and wanted to thank me again for my help. One night, I was sent upstairs by the counselors to check on Billy, a convicted armed robber, who was staying at Spectrum House instead of jail. Billy was a good friend, teaching me more about how to read. For the first time in my life, I read a book from beginning to end. It was Jonathan Livingston Seagull, my all-time favorite. When I saw Billy, he was smoking a cigarette, and no upstairs. The staff smelled the smoke and asked me who was smoking. I knew if I didn't get honest with them, I was in trouble. I told them it was Billy, and they sent him back to jail. I became angry and depressed after they did this to someone I liked, but I also realized that I couldn't lie anymore about things either. Anne's mother, Rose, began bringing the kids on weekends and would drop them off so that we could spend the day together. When they left with her, I could hear Jesse and Amy screaming not to leave Daddy behind. I remember seeing their faces in the back window full of pain and anguish. Thanks again, heroine. I would now like to mention my first spiritual awakening and recovery. This was probably the most important moment. Page 74. This is probably the most important moment in my life thus far. Yes. Smith, I'll be on in a couple chapters. I was still a punk, not playing by the rules, and thinking I was somehow above the law of the land. One day I walked upstairs and found Raul on his knees praying in Spanish. He got up and told me he felt much better. I asked him how praying could possibly make him feel better. He told me that every morning he asked God to remove his character defects and obsessions to use drugs and alcohol, and to turn his life and will over to the care of God as he understood him. I did not fully understand what he meant by turning it over, but I did know that my will and my pride, as I understood it, was not working, and I needed something else to take their place. I went to my room and knelt down by my bed and asked God to relieve my obsession for drugs and help me with my character defects, whatever that meant, which were causing me so much pain. I felt from the depth of my soul this warm, comfortable feeling that ran through my body, making it feel better than a bag of dope ever did. It filled me with such positive energy that I was totally enraptured. I felt a perfect acceptance of life and the universe. I wandered downstairs and decided to start cleaning the dirtiest part of the kitchen, and was rather content doing it. Hydrick came out and saw me whistling while going to town cleaning, and gave me this strange stare. I was definitely out of character. Looking back at this day, it becomes more and more important to realize that the spiritual breakthrough began with me on my knees. I would lie awake in bed at night thinking differently about things. I wondered about this program of action they were talking about in recovery meetings. I knew I had to jump in completely or fall by the wayside totally. I started getting up half an hour before everyone else in order to shower. I was in charge of the 3 travel vans, checking the oil and writing down the mileage, etc. My responsibilities increased, but my serenity was growing at the same time. I was still having panic attacks and bouts of anxiety, but I discovered that praying every morning was certainly more effective than anything else, drugs included. One time I felt very angry inside and was ready to leave this place. I packed up all my things and was sitting on the front porch when a fellow patient named Tom came out to the porch. He asked me where I was going, and I told him I was out of there. He threw his cigarette down and grabbed me by the shoulders and said, "Donnie, I love you, and I don't love a lot of people. This is the only place for people like us. Give it one more day." I saw tears in his eyes, and never before knew this kind of sincerity in my life. I also knew in the back of my mind that if I stepped off the porch I would die. It was as simple as that. I cried in his arms, letting go of the whelped up emotion I had carried for so many years. I agreed to stay for one more day. That's all an addict needs to do. Stay one more day. Tom is still around today, and I will be forever grateful for his help. So my spiritual awakening was not a full and mighty exaltation into peace. There was a battle going on, and I was in boot camp. I had now been in treatment for 7 months, and my life consisted mostly of cleaning house and attending meetings. A whole book could be written about these groups. If you could imagine 75 addicts living under the same roof, you would easily see the potential for some interesting moments. It was 1984, and the AIDS epidemic had just started gaining momentum. 2 other diseases, hepatitis B and C, were also killing addicts. I tested negative for AIDS, but positive for hepatitis B. I never got sick, but I do remember being unusually tired for a while. Hepatitis B attacks the liver, and I am fortunate the disease was arrested in only a short time. Back to the groups. The whole idea behind group was to air out any resentments you had towards other patients. You would book a haircut with the patient and confront that person with your resentments. In group, getting it all out in the open. There was no acting out in the groups, meaning you couldn't just say anything, but you were allowed to yell and scream, channeling your anger at whatever or whoever made you angry. Boy, did it feel good to get angry sometimes. We were divided into 4 groups, which were held in different rooms, the main dining room or the recreation room. The rules were you could yell and scream, but you couldn't threaten anyone or make any kind of sexual gestures toward people. The counselors themselves got involved in the groups and would participate in the activities despite my change of attitude. I was still in a lot of pain and felt remorse for my children. Beside my personal pain, there was just some people in my group who drove me crazy. There was one guy named Red who always sat in my group. He had red hair and red eyes and red skin, hence the name. Anyway, Red would always confront this other guy, Jerry, at the table. Jerry would go to reply, and Red would scream at the top of his lungs. More than once, Red's false teeth came flying out of his mouth. The funniest part was that he never missed a stride. When yelling, rambling on and on, basically speaking, you couldn't get out of your chair or touch anyone, but they let you verbally kill each other instead. While at Spectrum House, I was going to school. My teacher worked with me on one-to-one basis, helping me improve my spelling. I had already failed my GED a few times, but Tom, a lawyer from Boston, as well as a resident at Spectrum, kept talking me into trying again. So between Tom and Heydrich, that's exactly what I intended to do. It was my 9th month, and I shared with my group that my wife's visits were becoming less frequent. Heydrich told me to check out the situation at home and see if I wanted to return there once I completed the program. He gave me a day's pass to go home. I missed my kids so much that I cried in their arms for 10 minutes. I immediately saw evidence that Anne was smoking dope and doing heroin. Damn, that's that's his daughter. Oh, it's his wife, yeah. I asked her if she would put down the drugs if I came home. She was indignant and told me she'd never change her ways for anyone, and that I was the addict who left home, not her. I asked her if she was choosing drugs over me, and all she said was, "I'm not going to pay for your mistakes or give up anything." In the end, she let me know that it was her choice if she wanted to pick a drug over me. When I returned to Spectrum House, I shared this with the group. I just couldn't believe Anne would do this to me. I guess I imagined she would follow me right into the door of recovery. Now I know it seldom works out that way. The months were rolling by, and I had made it through 1 year. I must say that I saw 1,000 different faces come and go in 1 year. Most of them didn't make it past the first couple of weeks. I began to see how blessed I was to have painfully stuck it out during those first few horrible months. I began to see I was worthy of recovery, and regardless of my miserable upbringing, I was capable of getting beyond this unhappy period of my life. I also realized, just like the time I lent a hand to Raul, that I could help other addicts who were suffering with addiction to alcohol and drugs. Little did I realize then, my heart was starting to mend. I was actually thinking beyond my emotions, something I had never done before. As part of treatment, I was doing insulation work 10 to 11 hours a day, which included having to walk 5 or 6 miles each day. Working was an important aspect of the program because it was used to instill the necessary self-discipline needed to hold down a job by staying clean and sober. By now I was doing insulation work, and I remembered receiving my first paycheck. I brought the check to the bank and opened an account, keeping $50 for the week and putting the rest in savings. What a great feeling I had doing the right thing. I kept working and saving, and while I was doing this, a fellow graduate from the house named Danny came to visit me. He was a musician and wanted to know if I'd like to buy a Ludwig drum set. I instantly told him yes, and that I could pay for it now, but couldn't get it until I finished treatment. Looking over my financial statement that I had to turn into Heydrich each week, I knew he would not be happy. I ran into his office at the last minute and put my record book on his desk halfway up the stairs. I heard his voice echo through the hall. "Mr. Steiger, come here now." I entered his office, with my head down. He asked me on what I had spent $65 on. I told him a set of used drums. Then he asked me, "Do you want to go back to jail, you liar?" After telling him how important music was to me, he ordered me to give them back to Danny for a refund. What? Why? So that I would. Oh, damn it. So I said that I would. A week later, Heydrich asked if I had given back the drums, and I said to him in all honesty that I hadn't. The next night, we had a house meeting. The head counselor, Tom, opened up the meeting by saying, "Is everybody happy to be here?" 75 heads nodded yes. Then he said, "We have an issue concerning Don Steiger. Please stand, Don." I was angry with Hydrick for having Tom single me out in front of the whole house. Tom asked if I had purchased the drum set a couple of weeks before. I said yes, while staring sternly at Hydrick. Then Tom announced to the others that I had been in treatment for 14 months, and that I would not be going home to my wife because of her drug use. He turned to me and said, "Don, you keep those drums. It's all you have right now." While Tom moved on to the next item of business, Hydrick looked at me and gave me a wink. After all this, I cried in relief. When my 18 months were up, it was time for me to move on. I made arrangements to rent a room in Hopkinton for $150 a month. Bro, I wish. $150 a month. I felt strange on my last day there, waiting to leave the place I had first hated. Those hard to deal with patients, Hydrick, Tom, the giant cigarette, etc. But this was the next step in my journey, something I had to take slowly. The next day before I left, Hydrick just looked at me and said, "I had better see your face at the aftercare meetings or I'll hunt you down." He then turned and walked down the hall. I loved that man more than any other human being in my entire life. On the outside, I maintained my job of installing insulation and was glad to have something to keep me busy. Since it was a new chapter in my life, I was very apprehensive about the challenges that lay ahead. This uncertainty made me pray a lot each day because I knew I could not succeed alone. The rooming house in Hopkinton, probably not how you say it, but whatever, we're moving on. Hopkinton was really a nice and quiet place to live. I met a woman on one of the job sites by the name of Lynn, whom I asked out to dinner. When she said yes, I was pretty psyched. She was a great friend to me because she had a great passion for life and old-fashioned views. We painted her garage and took walks in the country. We also enjoyed holding hands and talking about music. I felt like a high school kid again. When I picked up my drum set from Danny, I practiced every day in the cellar. I had my musical energy back. I even went to some nightclubs to hear various bands, feeling no desire to drink. I loved to dance and would have a great time without drugs or booze. My God had placed a neutral feeling in me regarding those two substances. The toughest part for me was learning how to be alone. I would eat dinner by myself a lot and wonder if I was going to be that way forever. But I also realized that my life was now a blank piece of paper, and I could draw anything I wanted on it. I had this blind faith in God, believing He would take care of me and let me rise above these false feelings of loneliness. I also knew I needed to get back and forth to Spectrum House to participate in the aftercare meetings. Hydrick informed me that I would be receiving my diploma the following month at the annual graduation ceremony. There were 6 of us who were scheduled to receive a certification for 18 months of clean time. 6 out of thousands. It was mind-blowing. While waiting that month out, 2 of the 6 would start using, and 1 would die of an overdose. This was definitely one of the strangest emotional periods of my life. I was working 5 days a week in my present job as an insulation installer, plus being a demolition man, tearing down old structures with a sledgehammer and a crowbar. On weekends, I did construction jobs for extra money, since I had to pay child support and restitution for the things I had taken from Norton's. In my spare time, I played drums whenever I got bored, eventually forming a band called Side 2. That's a cool name. We musicians called Artistry and Recovery, we musicians in various clubs and formed a group of other sober musicians called artists in recovery. I had fun playing and felt like I was beginning to live again. I continued the aftercare with Hydrick and would tell him about my state of confusion. When I wasn't in aftercare, I ate alone, slept alone, and cried alone. Sometimes after work, I would go to Spectrum House and just sit on the porch and bawl. No one said a word to me. No one kicked me out. Thank God for that place. The effect of my emotional life after using drugs for so many years was severe. I lost months of my life in which I had no memory of what happened. The road back was going to be a long one, but I was told that with one day at a time, it was possible. One of the addicts with whom I used drugs, Tom, moved in with my wife. Anne was still using heroin and did not want me around. Most of the time, when I went to visit the kids, she would keep me from seeing them. I never had the opportunity to see them for the holidays. Not Christmas, not New Year's, not Easter, not even for their birthdays. Damn. Tom. Damn you, Tom. My graduation ceremony following the 18-month treatment program, there's a picture of that. And there's another picture of himself on the drums. Again, if you want to see these pictures, highly recommend buying his book. Link is in the description on my YouTube at The One Who Cares, if you're watching this on Instagram. Now, the long road to home. The God I would choose if I turned it all over. What happening now? Will I still stay sober? Dear Jesse and Amy, I haven't had a chance to talk to either of you, so I want both of you to know that you are in my prayers and that I love you, and I'm grateful that I have you. I know it's been rough for a long time. I have been thinking now how I have not been there for you. Above all else, I am sorry for this. I want you to know that you are welcome in my home anytime. I want to talk to you about change. Change can sometimes be difficult, but when you think about it, we are all always changing one way or another. The biggest difficulty in change is the fear that it brings. I want you to know that what has happened in my life before this great change has nothing to do with you. I took a lot of blame for my parents' behavior and felt empty inside because of it. I felt inadequate all my life and found drugs and alcohol to kill the pain. It didn't work. This is my change. But I want to talk to you about your change. How you deal with change will have a lot to do with how happy you'll be in this life. The message I want you to take is that the right kind of change is good. I know I had to leave you to go get help, and that change was probably very traumatic for you. I did this not to hurt you. I never did anything to hurt you, but to save my life. Understand the emptiness and shame you must have felt about me. You became victims of my circumstances. Love yourselves and put yourselves first. Amy, you are a beautiful and smart woman who is going places. Is that his daughter, Amy? Oh, okay. Both his daughter and his ex have A names. You have a lot to offer people because you are caring and compassionate. I hear it when I talk to you on the phone that you are a truly exceptional person. Jesse, you are also doing awesome and working hard. Follow your dreams and never give up. Be positive whenever you feel negative emotions like anger, jealousy, resentment. Ask God to take them away instantly. We have the power to change our thinking. We never have to blame others for our own lives. All my life, I pointed the finger at others. I had to stop this in order to survive. Allow God to work everything out for you, and wonderful things will happen. I would also like to say something about opportunity. Opportunities in life will be available to you, but it won't always come to you. You must go after what you want and ask God for His will to be done, not yours. Jesse, when you don't talk to me very much, that usually means something is up, right? You can call me anytime with any problem. Remember this always about relationships. We do not own anyone, and if you truly love someone, empower them to be free. I have lost a lot of love in my life because I tried to control my partner since I was fearful and insecure. Let yourself love and be loved. It is the only thing that's real in life, that's worthwhile. Life is a learning experience. It is not about arriving anywhere or getting things. It is the journey. You never arrive. I give my problems to God, and He takes care of them. I am truly a free man. I am 50 and feel like I'm 20. For you, Amy, follow your dreams and explore your options. God will always be with you no matter where you go. Seek and you will find. Knock on the door and the door will open to you. For anyone who asks, receives. For anyone who asks, receives. I love and miss you both of you so much. I realize you have your own lives and I respect that. But I want you to know that I want the best for you. I hope to see you soon and give you the biggest hug you've ever had. Your mother has done the best she could for you, and Tom has been there for you as well. For you also. Remember, you always have a choice. My advice is to think about these choices and move forward in life. I want to thank you both for hanging in there and not giving up on me. I will never give up on you. Thank you for being there when I needed you. With love, I wish you a Merry Christmas too, Dad. Christmas was tough that year. I spent it at Spectrum House giving out presents to the addicts just starting treatment. I could share my own experience with them, but more importantly, I was there to listen to their problems. Through my presence, I was able to offer them hope. There's simply no better way to stop worrying about your own troubles than by helping others. This was, and still is, a must for my recovery. After volunteering at Spectrum for a while, they offered me a job. I was honored and thrilled by this opportunity. I no longer had to work like a dog for minimum pay. Now I was able to do what I truly loved doing, helping other addicts. I began bringing some of the patients to AA meetings, and up to that point, I had not attended regularly myself. The one thing I learned was that first step in recovery consists of admission of powerlessness. I applied it to my own life. Once I admitted defeat to drugs and alcohol, my recovery began. It was that simple. Admission of powerlessness equaled power over my addictions. One speaker at the meeting said that pride acts as a barrier to make any kind of admission. A lot of times an alcoholic would rather die than admit he has a problem. He also went on to say that alcohol and drug use is merely the symptom of a disease. It is the behavior that needs to be changed. Behaviors. I could see it clearly that night. I need to follow this program of action. There was a way up and a way out of this messy bog, and it was there for the taking. Someone later came up to me and handed me a blue book. At first I said I didn't need it. After all, I had a diploma. But just enough humility entered into my heart to accept that gift. Next to the Bible, it was to be the most important book I would ever read. I started going to a meeting every week. I was told to ask God every day to keep me from a drink or a drug and thank Him at night. If I stayed sober, and this I did, I had this sense of urgency to help others and spread the word. I ran recovery groups at Spectrum, and by now was actually beginning to feel happier because helping others was in turn helping me even more so. I experienced peace and gratitude, making my life more manageable. As time went on, I had a stronger desire against the urge to pick up a drink or drug. I was told that the first time picking up would kill me, not the 100th. Let me reread that. I was told that the first time picking up would kill me, not the 100th. I was learning how to live again. I prayed for my children, for Anne, for other addicts. I also learned that my problems centered in my mind, that the insanity of an addict is his constant belief that one day he'll be able to use in safety, that somehow, somewhere, he can beat the odds and use drugs without losing everything. That was my insanity. This was where God had to intervene. He had to show me how to play out the whole tape inside my head, so I would realize that could happen to me if I started using again. If that occurred, the best thing I had going for me was to end up back at the Spectrum house. While on the job at Spectrum, the doctor in detox asked to speak to me because he was very concerned about me. "Don," he said, "are you okay?" I answered, "Yes, why?" "What's up with you, Don?" To which I replied, "I have no idea what you're implying." "Well, have you been getting high?" "No. What makes you ask?" "Do you have a wife by the name of Anne?" I answered yes, but that I had not lived with her for about 3 years. Then my next question was, "Is she active?" "You're damn right she is," was his answer. He went on to tell me that he had just examined her at the clinic in downtown Worcester, and that she was strung out badly, looking terrible. He said he put her on the methadone program long term. No one ever knew what happened that day between the doc and myself. Even though I knew in my heart something was not right all along by the questions he was asking me, this was just one way of God's truth being revealed to me. The news about Anne still hurt like a knife in my heart. I kept saying, "Turn it over," and one day at a time. I prayed for Anne every day, but realized that all the prayer in the world would not help another addict until he or she wanted to stay sober. How deep the empty, bottomless pit. Saying goodbye is the hardest part of it. I went to God and prayed to be restored to sanity in all areas of my life. I prayed that my sick self would be turned over to God. God's will was for me to stay sober and recover spiritually from this deadly illness. Every day I turned my will and my life over to the care of God as I understood Him. He was like a lifeguard watching over me as I swam, and as long as I didn't swim too far from Him, I would know He was there and would never let me drown. But who was this God? The God I grew up with in the Episcopal? Episcopal? Definitely butchering that. Episcopal Church was not working in my life. How could God have let all these things happen to me? This was no lifeguard. I had to start over. I had to start over with God. I needed a new relationship. Out with the old tapes and in with the new. But I didn't have to wait until I found out who God really was before I went to Him. When I prayed for His will and not mine to be done, I simply had an easier time with life. I didn't question it then, and I don't know now. I had to make a decision, and that was to have God run my life. He was going to be my new boss, my new employer, because He wants me to be happy and sane. He is compassionate and forgiving. My God lets me make mistakes so I can learn from them. God healing me from all my wounds and transgressions. When I seek Him out, He is always ready to help. To me, the difference between religion and spirituality is simple. Religion is for people who are afraid to go to hell, while spirituality is for people who have already been to hell and don't want to go back. That is why I needed an unfearing God in my life. Someone who would love me and love me the way I was in the moment since I felt so defective. I abandoned myself to God as I understood Him and did not hold back, but stepped out in faith. I was 3 years sober when my friend Jesse died. I could count on one hand the number of close friends that I have had in my life, and Jesse was number one. The life I was leading left little room for trust, because addicts will lie right to your face if they think they can get something from or out of you. But Jesse and I trusted each other and knew that to have one true friend in life of hell was much more important than ripping off one more addict. This is why it was hard for me to understand why an addict like me gets a second chance at this wonderful life while Jesse dies an addict's death. Life's perplexities. What I am, I cannot change. What I want, I cannot have. What I need, I cannot get. What I see, I cannot find. What I know, I cannot grasp. And so on a Sunday morning, Jesse's mother went to his bedroom to wake him up. She no doubt felt the dread that people feel when they see someone they love going down. This morning, her deepest fears came true. Jesse was dead at the young age of 33. Life's so short that sometimes we're gone before we began. I went to the funeral sober. I couldn't help thinking that I may have been able to do something to save him. Watching his shattered mother break down at the funeral hit my soul like a freight train. Hopefully for his sake, Jesse is at peace with God. Jesse's death hit me pretty hard emotionally. I had seen these feelings of rage and shame and guilt. It made me very angry, and of course behind every angry emotion is fear. I asked myself, what do I do now? Here I stood 3 years without drugs. I had lost my best friend to an overdose and found myself still estranged from my family. I was at a loss as to what to do. There was one thing I knew I had to do, and that was to ask someone for help, because I realized that if I closed my eyes, I was a dead man. If I closed up, I was a dead man. I had to take the shields off and break my isolation from my fellow man. I likened it to the old movies I used to watch. When the knights dressed in armor and prepared for battle, the armor for me was my defenses. I had so many years of dammed up emotions and fears buried underneath this armor. Jesse's death pierced that armor, for it was the first time in many, many years that I had felt anything without drugs in my system. Someone once said to me that some addicts love you so much they will die for you in order for you to see your recovery. In order to see you recover. I believe Jesse's death propelled me into a spiritual program of action, which would change every fiber of my being. I was about to be reborn. A searching and fearless moral inventory. I needed to go back. I needed to face my past. I needed to search out those things in me that caused me to lack the ability to live life on life's terms. I was going to look back to understand why I was still suffering from the remorse and shame of yesterday. I was told to write a fearless and moral inventory of myself and look at my behaviors. If I could see my patterns of destructive behavior, I could begin to live in the solution, not the problem. All of it had to be dealt with. The inadequacies, the fear, the doubts, and the sexual conduct. People are either acting on fear or faith. But now, I had to do it all on faith. We are all afraid to an extent to turn over our stones. But this was exactly what I had to do in order to survive. Many people can't because they won't. And few people can because they will. I always felt a little different than my fellow man. I didn't have enough money, power, or prestige. I would say, look at me, but don't look too close. I needed more sex, more recognition, more of more. Too much was never enough. My instincts ran riot, unchecked, and left me empty and afraid. Fear generated all sorts of absurd behavior. The bottom line was this: I felt inadequate and wanted to battle my way to the top, always seeking validation and approval from others. Again, my pride was stopping me from writing this stuff out. I would have to write about my marriage, my family, and my traumas. It was my inventory. I had to look at me, not anyone else. What have I done to hurt others and why? By this means I could begin to construct a moral sensibility, that is, to know right from wrong. I had to stop running away from me. Faith is doing things without knowing the outcome. Mother Teresa said she was afraid every minute of her life, but never let it stop her from doing anything she felt compelled to do. I went to see Father Fred, a Roman Catholic priest. Spending 3 hours with him, he too was in recovery. I heard that he had helped many alcoholics who were having trouble with their past. My hope was that he would tell me I was okay. Fred was going blind and couldn't see the coffee cup on the table. I had to move the cup where he was pouring the coffee. He opened that blue book that was given to me at my first AA meeting and pointed at it. It was a prayer that talked of making a decision to turn your will over to the care of God. He wanted me to figure out on my own that I was already there and didn't even know it. Then dawned on me that I could write this inventory because God was running the show and He would take care of me. That was a long chapter.
That was one chapter.
Chapter 9, Chapter 10 are only a couple pages. And it's Chapter 11 and Chapter 12, which I think I'll save for Part 5. Wow. That was the most intense chapter that I've read so far. Holy shit. What a great book. Don't have to agree with everything he says, but it is a phenomenal book that I think every addict should read. And it really does give you a great perspective on the life and the trauma that addictions, disease can give people. Of course, you can buy this book yourself. The link is in the description of my YouTube channel at The One Who Cares if you're watching on Instagram. And I will also link his YouTube channel. Don Steiger, the author of this book, is alive and well in his early 70s, and he's crushing it. So if you enjoyed, please leave a like, share the video, buy the book, share the book. And I will see you guys for the last portion of this book, the last few chapters, 9 through 12, in the next video. Take care, y'all. Remember, you're gorgeous.
What picks me up is your loving soul. And every time that I come home, I get to see you in your fancy clothes. But if this time ever has to come to an end, don't you cry, just smile because it happened. That's our family, you plus me with a barbecue in the backyard. Bunch of crazy kids that's running around, and that's our family, you plus me. 3 puppies, that's a barbecue in the backyard. I'm a cowboy, I'ma be a cowboy free. Barbecue in the backyard. Bunch of crazy kids that just run around. I'm a cowboy living like a rock star.